What, bitch? What?
So you in a club full of people and see a girl from across the room and you can figure out who that is? I don't know if that's making sense. I don't.
You know why? Because it's not making sense. So Rasheeda, for once, I'm actually in agreement with you. The problem I have though with Rasheeda is that Rasheeda, how are you able to see all her lies, but you can't see your own? How are you able to see Yandy's delusion, but you can't see your own? We gotta talk. Come here. We gotta talk. 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 Now I'll play the rest of the clip in a second or two, but I wanted to have this real conversation because I've done the Yandy conversation beforehand. And I think this is really interesting with Yandy and Rasheeda. I've said they are pretty much the same woman because Yandy is turning into Rasheeda 2.0, right? We've seen with Rasheeda when it came to Kirk how oblivious and delusional she became. Like she ignored what she was seeing as a reality. Now, there are obviously factors behind that why women will choose to be delusional, right? They place far too much importance on the marriage. They're afraid to be alone. I've invested all this time and energy and money into this man. We have kids together. What would the public think? I can't fail. What if there were people that said we shouldn't be together? I can't prove them right. Right? I've got to prove them wrong. There are so many different factors as to why someone ends up trying to stay in something that they clearly can see is wrong. But it happens a lot of the time. We all do it because really and truly we are selfish in our endeavors, and sometimes that selfishness, okay, is harmful to us, right? It's a form of mental self-harm, almost, in a sense, where you stay in relationships that are actually doing you dirty. And I love the scripture that I picked out as well from Ephesians 4 verse 31, which says, let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and slander be put away from you along with all malice. That's going to be very hard to do when you're staying in the pit full of vipers. And so when you are being poisoned simultaneously by the lies and by the actions of your partner, and you are trying to excuse it away, you are causing bitterness, anger, resentment to build up, and it's beginning to overtake you. And so right now it's cool because you're in a state of delusion, but when it finally hits, instead of speaking to the rock, you're going to hit it like Moses. You're going to be in a place where you're going to be lacking self-control. And actually, the pain you'll feel is so delayed from where it is now to where it happens later on that it will hit you very heavy because you'd have put it aside and said, oh, I'm not going to deal with it right now. But the reality situation is you need to deal with it right now. If you don't deal with it right now, guess what's going to happen? Later on, the pain is going to be like an avalanche. You're going to be snowed in. And I find that Yandy's excuse is so absurd, but that's what happens when you are living in a land of delusion. That's why I said we need to talk, because I don't want my sisters to be in this particular situation or my friends, right? But let's really deep this. She's now having a beef with Yandy, with Rasheeda, which I'll talk about in part 2.
I believe Spice when she says she didn't know what was going on. Because one thing about her, Spice rides for her friends. Now, Rasheeda, on the other hand, this is the second time I'm side.
Now, okay, Yandy says this is the second time. I don't know what the first time was, but this second time she's side-eyeing Rasheeda because Rasheeda is actually like, this don't make sense. And you have to understand, when people are in the land of delusion, they don't want to be made sense of. Like, she doesn't want to make sense because she wants to stay. This is why it's so difficult to educate people and to really get them to see the truth. Like, what Yandy needs right now is a good ass therapist to really start offloading some of the things that she feels and be able to have a safe space to be able to let it come back and hear herself and what she's saying, because she's become Rasheeda 2.0. We've seen Rasheeda now excuse Kirk's behavior. Even when he's sleeping with women, he can sleep right in front of her and she'll say it's the devil. Kirk could sleep with another woman right in front of her and she'd be like, no, that's not what I saw. Right? And I'm being facetious, but you're listening to this going, you're right, Coach. You agree with what I'm saying to you, because we understand the level and the depth that Rasheeda is in. She's in the mud. But somebody in the mud is spotting somebody else and going, you are also in the mud. And that can be a little bit infuriating sometimes, because I'm sure Yandy wants to tell her, but babe, how are you talking about me when you got your own situation? And basically what you're saying is, if I'm doing wrong and you doing wrong, don't be trying to talk about my wrong. If I'm delusional and you delusional, don't be talking about my delusion, because we're all delusional here. And that's, in a sense, why this thing won't change. But I do understand where Rasheeda's coming from, that it doesn't make sense, right? Even her son came out, and even Thingy's son came out, wasn't it? Her stepson, or was it her son or whatever, came out, Little Mandisi, and was basically mocking the situation. That's how far we're going. Imagine that your son is now mocking the situation. Now, maybe they are play acting, because I can't imagine that the son could mock the mother. And this will be normal. And this will be acceptable. Like, I can't imagine little Mendici coming out and mocking the mother. And I'll talk about that in another video. I don't want to do that now. That shows a level of depravity in the situation that's happening. The father Mendicis is to blame here. He decided to take a girl's Instagram, said it was complicated, and actually messaged the girl first. You can't magic that away, Yandy. And I said in this my other video, Yandy, there was a lot of work, a lot of time where you could have saved this relationship, but you were so invested in trying to win, trying to be a surrogate, not listening. Now we're in a situation where you're talking about the world wants to break you guys up. No, you are going to break you up. And actually you need to come out of that delusion, because actually what you don't realize is by not being by being delusional, you actually look less sexy and unattractive. You're not going to win that man. I want to be very frank. Anybody out here, the more delusional you look, the more unattractive you become. You cannot be that delusional. You actually have to be a sense of soberness, because that man's looking at you going, so where are your boundaries at? See, men love women with boundaries. So the more that you're forgiving me, the more I'm looking at you and I'm actually not respecting you. And the more that I'm not respecting you, the more I'm feeling unattracted towards you. Sis, get it together. Grab your balls that you don't have, suck it up, and now put some boundaries in. This is how I'm going to be treated. If this is what you want to do, I'm willing to walk away. That willingness to walk away creates value. See, what we don't value is people that are willing to stay through the thick and thin through anything. You're being abused, you're being mistreated, you're being told to F off, you're being just disrespected. Now, I want you to think about a product. If somebody was disrespecting a product and you had not seen it before, would you respect it? If you see it being kicked about, trashed about, you're going to think, oh, it must not be expensive because they're kicking this thing about. Right? It's the same measure. Don't allow yourself to be kicked about when you have a choice in the matter. You can walk. Don't lose yourself in trying to find him. That's a word. Don't lose yourself in a battle to find him, because in doing so, you may find him, lose yourself, and find yourself in somewhere that you don't know and don't recognize. You know what I'm saying to you? Right? You're allowing yourself to be broken in very unique ways because you're holding on to somebody who doesn't want to be held on to. And you're delaying the inevitable, the avalanche. The avalanche will come. And when the avalanche comes, you will be buried. And when you're buried, it takes so much more longer to rise up. And you'll be asking yourself, why didn't I just exit this process? Why didn't I get out earlier? Why didn't I execute this plan beforehand? Why didn't I hold them accountable beforehand? We're now looking crazy in front of the whole world, talking about the whole world wants to break them up. We're only one of the few couples left in this. No, sis. Ain't no point being a couple if the person don't want to be a couple with you. That's a couple of idiots. And I mean that with all respect. I don't mean that you're naturally an idiot. You know what I'm saying to you? Right? So we don't want to be those bumbling fools where we're trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense. We're having to try and corroborate a story that doesn't actually align. You trying to make it sense. He messaged her first. Oh, that was me. It couldn't have been because he already done got. Anyway, it's that's what happens when delusion is overtaking. I need Yanni to wake up, smell a cake of coffee. All right, we appreciate her, but I wanted to flourish. We got to talk, man.